Again guys, and welcome to episode 12 of Forget Your Warranty, the review series for Gran Turismo's aftermarket tuner car selection. And in this particular pick we're featuring one of the lower grade models of the aftermarket tuner picks, and this car is, I would say, a very good entry level vehicle to the world of aftermarket tuner cars on Gran Turismo 6, or on pretty much any Gran Turismo game wherein it's featured. And the car is an Amuse version of the Honda S2000. Amuse, of course, have numerous different versions of the Honda S2000 on the game. You've got this car, which is the street version. You've got the R1, which is a slightly more hardcore track variant. You've, of course, got the two different variations of the GT1, the non-premium and the premium. And the GT1 versions are understandably the most eye-catching, the most popular, the most widely used, whereas the R1 and this car tend to be overlooked a little bit more. There are certainly some people who do use them, but they don't see as much widespread use as the GT1s do. So the question is, what do they have to offer, and why do I say that this is one of the best entry-level vehicles? Well, the main reason why I would say that is because in the world of aftermarket tuner cars on Gran Turismo, many of them are very loud. They're big, bombastic, powerful, crazy-looking cars with big prices, big performance, and they're not necessarily always the most beginner-friendly vehicles. Some of them are so quick that you really have to be already used to driving high-performance cars, in many cases even race cars, to know how to get the best out of them. Just think of stuff like the Amuse GT1s, the HKS Evo, the Amuse Carbon R Skyline, and various others. They require a certain level of skill which a beginner isn't going to have. Whereas other vehicles, such as the majority of the Spoon models, such as the CRZ, the Integra, the Civic, etc., and this car from Amuse, as well as some others, they're much more lower level, more street level, more affordable, and have significantly easier performance to deal with. They're not bad cars, and they're certainly not slow cars, and they're not just cars that beginners can use, but they are cars which beginners can use. Now that sounds, of course, like a contradiction, but what I mean by that is that there are some vehicles which you could quite easily consider to be only geared towards beginners, stuff like the Lupo or Beetle Cup cars, the Hyundai Click Type R. Now the reality is they can be used by professional drivers very well, but they're more geared towards beginners. They have a very soft, easy, beginner-friendly package and beginner-friendly price. Others, though, can appeal to a broader audience. And this is one of those cars. It's beginner friendly, but at the same time, if you are a more advanced driver, you can still get a lot of use out of this vehicle. Now the Honda S2000, which it's based on, is already a very strong performance car, and one of the best things I think about this particular model is that it's subtle. Amuse goes crazy when it comes to their top-end models, such as the GT1, and you've got to love them for it. They do make the S2000 in particular a fantastic-looking car with the upgrades that they do offer. That being said, though, understated cars are still cool. I wouldn't quite call it a sleeper car, but it's about as close to that as you could get while still being an aftermarket vehicle. So the question is, what does this car actually offer? Well, for a start, this is only a 50 grand car, and for a tuner car, that's very cheap. You're working with a 2-litre engine, which you can upgrade to 486 horsepower, which, surprisingly, is actually more power than the R1 version, which is more than double the price. So that's an interesting point, and one which you probably wouldn't expect. It doesn't, though, have as much torque. At 287 foot-pounds. It is very light, at 1,049 kilos, which is only 8 kilos heavier than the R1 version, and it puts out 463 horsepower per tonne. As far as its fully tuned PP, it's a lot more reasonable than the R1 version. The R1 sits at 557, whereas this car sits at 543. That's much more reasonable. Doesn't sound like a huge difference between the two, but it does make a big difference having that PP lower. Now, we already said it's less than half the price. This car is 75,000 credits cheaper than the next level up. But it has more power than that car and doesn't weigh significantly more, only 8 kilos difference. So the question is the street version good enough to tempt you away from other tuner cars, or at least consider them on equal footing? I would say yes in the case of this car, because although this car isn't necessarily mind-blowing or the kind of car which will beat everything in any particular way, but what it is, and this really does work from what the S2000 is already good at, is it's a good all-round sports car. The Honda S2000 doesn't even try to be the best sports car in any one particular way, but some of the best performance cars don't do that either. It's my personal belief, and manufacturers would seem to share this ethos as well, that the best way to build a truly brilliant all-round vehicle in any category is not to try and make it the best in any one particular way, but to try and make it good as an all-round vehicle. Vehicles that tend to be over-specialised in one particular way tend to be not that great. They might be good at one thing, but that kind of makes them overly niched. The Honda S2000 is not an overly niched car. It's good at everything it does. It's not ridiculously good at anything that it does, but it's strong at everything it does to the point where it's a dependable all-rounder. This car basically takes all those points that are already good about the S2000 and just refines them and adds a little bit extra to them. And it doesn't even cost that much more. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time. And as always, thanks for watching.